6:15. The London property market was for years a one-way bet, pretty much. Prices rose, and then they rose, and then they rose again. There is evidence, though, that maybe that is going to change. Dominic O'Connell is here with that and the rest of the business news. Morning, Dom.
Yeah, morning, Justin. We're starting with the nation's favourite topic of conversation, house prices. The latest data is out this morning from the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. It shows that stamp duty changes are hitting the high end of the market quite hard, but also nationally that the supply of homes is not growing quickly. In upmarket areas of central London, prices are dropping by as much as 13%, according to some agents. There are fears, but this is a subject for debate, which we will come to, that this could ripple out into the rest of the market. Naomi Heaton is the Chief Executive of London Central Portfolio, an investment company that specialises in central London. Henry Pryor is an independent housing expert. Henry, if I could start with you first, please. Could you explain what these stamp duty changes are? Some people will know about them, some people won't have occurred to them at all.
Well, good morning, Dominic. Yes, what's interesting, the stamp duty changes which George Osborne, when Chancellor, brought in, was much anticipated and frankly welcomed by much of the industry. It removed the slab-like structure of stamp duty and made transactions for buyers of the majority, perhaps 95% of all homes, actually cheaper. But he lumped the additional pain onto the very top end of the market, which has now seen transactions for those buying at £2 million, for example, topping over £200,000. So somebody buying a property for which we won't have much sympathy, I suspect, at the very top end of the market, particularly if it's now a second home, such changes that were brought in April, you may recall, now pays over 10% in transaction tax. And that's been something of a break at the top end.
And so, Naomi, in your specialist field, what's happening in central London?
Well, what we're seeing is, according to Land Registry statistics that came out yesterday, an enormous drop in transactions. So if you do take the very top end, over 5 million, there's been about a 60% drop in transactions, and precisely 9 new build sales occurred over 5 million. So we've seen a very big drop in transactions.
The drop in transaction numbers. What about prices?
Well, prices probably again at the top end, and I'm talking about prices over £1 million, are probably dropping in the region of 20%. So it's affecting the high value properties and it's affecting the new build properties. And overall the sector has dropped transaction-wise by 33%. Now that is a problem. Simply because it means that the stamp duty tax take, drops it considerably. And for a government whose intended objective was to increase tax take, we reckon that sector, which is only 1% of the market, has contributed a £500 million fall in stamp duty.
Okay, now a lot of people will not be bothered too much about what happens in upmarket London property. Does it have an effect, though, on the rest of the country? Is there any transmission between what happens in upmarket London, in Kensington and Chelsea, out to what might happen in Sunderland?
Well, there are 2 points there. In my opinion, there won't be a ripple effect. Someone who's buying a property at 10 million and they have to pay 9 million, well, so what? If you're buying a property for under 250,000, which is the average price in the UK, it simply isn't going to affect you. So there won't be a price ripple.
Because affordability is still quite good, isn't it? Mortgages, even though they're starting to move a little bit, are still quite cheap.
Affordability is relatively good, but the other problem we have is that this drop in transactions due to the accumulation of taxes plus the uncertainty of Brexit has filtered right through the rest of the country. So there is also a drop in sales over the last 6 months of 33%. Now that is a real issue, because if you can't get mobility within the housing market, people can't get onto the housing ladder.
Henry, your view is, what about the transmission between London and the rest of the country?
Well, there is a great danger of cross-infection and problems at the top end impacting on the rest of the market. Indeed, the share price of the country's biggest estate agent, Countrywide, is down 58% over the last 12 months. But I take issue with some of Naomi's calculations. The Land Registry figures that she is quoting and the conclusions she comes to are challenged by most of the big estate agency groups like Savills and Knight Frank. Their latest data from the Land Registry takes us to the end of August. We haven't seen September or October's numbers yet. Yes, there is a change in direction. Yes, there's a change in sentiment, and that pendulum that has swung from a seller's market to a buyer's market. But we aren't yet needing to sit on our window ledges and worry quite so much this side of Christmas.
Because the Halifax numbers out yesterday, it showed a slowdown in activity activity, but prices holding up quite well, up 6%. So
prices holding up there, and also asking prices holding up too. So we're seeing a slowdown in the additional increase in prices, both that sellers want and that buyers are paying, but we haven't yet seen the Armageddon that is being suggested.
But that is partly because the UK property market is actually inflated over since the credit crunch. Average price rise has been just 2% a year. So property prices in real terms are still below where they were pre-credit crunch.
Naomi, just very quickly, the Brexit effect. We've been talking a lot about stamp duty. What's it done to central London?
Well, the Brexit effect has affected central London because it caused uncertainty pre-referendum and obviously afterwards. I would say it's had more of an effect in the rest of the country because it's dampened sentiment. And actually, if anything, this massive fall in stamp duty take of about £500 million has been mitigated by the fact that sterling is weak. So for the foreign investor, although there are higher stamp duty charges, there are
some bargains.
There's some bargains too.
Henry?
We haven't got time, but I'm afraid I disagree with almost all of that. If you're someone who owns a home in Northern Ireland, for example, you'll be aware that house prices are still 50% below where they were at the peak in 2007. We could go on, I'm afraid, for the rest of the programme, probably the rest of the morning.
A disagreement over housing, who would have thought it? Thank you very much, Naomi Heaton from London Central Portfolio, and Henry Pryor, the independent housing expert.